I'm Justin Silverman of the New England First Amendment Coalition. This is our 30-minute skills class on Web Scraping 101. I appreciate you all being here. This is the first of two web scraping classes we'll be offering. The next one is on August 20th, so please make note of that date. As a reminder, a list of all upcoming classes, as well as links to all previous ones, are available at nefac.org/30-minute skills. We have a lot to cover, not a lot of time, so let's get started. Your instructor today is Maggie Mulvihill. She's an investigative journalist and a professor at Boston University. Maggie, all yours.
So hi, welcome. We're going to go ahead and in 30 minutes learn how to scrape some data from the web in Google Sheets. If you don't have a Google Sheets account, which probably most of you do, please go ahead and make sure to open up Google Sheets. What we're going to do is extract some data from web pages and put them into a structured data format so that you can analyze them or visualize them. Okay, so our lesson today is just making sure you have Google Sheets, a little bit about me, some stories I've done with my students scraping data from the web, what web scraping is, and some basics about web pages. And then we'll get right into the hands-on portion. And then I have an exercise for you at the end, some practice and some resources for you if you want to go ahead and scrape data afterwards. And then just a little bit of information about why you should learn how to scrape, especially if you're a journalist, but really it's useful for people in other fields as well. Okay, so please make sure that you have Google Sheets ready to go. And if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. Just a little bit about me. I teach data journalism and media law at Boston University. I was a libel lawyer in another life, and I'm on the board of the New England First Amendment Coalition and the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press. I also write for a number of news organizations, including doing stories with my students for the Globe and some other news outlets. And I'm really passionate about open government, freedom of information, which is why it's important for me to do these trainings. So my students and I have used web scraping in lots of different ways, but this was a story that I'm particularly proud of. We worked at the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at the University of Maryland, and this was a story we did on evictions and homelessness called Nowhere to Go. It was about the eviction moratoriums across the country, forcing people into homelessness, or the and also the criminalization of homelessness in this country. So this was a story that we did for the Globe. And we scraped eviction data from court websites all across the country. It was a collaboration of journalism schools. You know, people couldn't pay their rent, so they were being forced into homelessness. We looked at homelessness from a lot of different angles. And I was just proud of this one because the scraping of the data enabled ultimately our students to get lots and lots of clips, including in the Washington Post, the AP. This was a story that we did in the AP, and they won a bunch of awards as part of the collaboration. And again, that was data that was scraped from court websites of eviction cases all across the country. So that's just one example. There's lots and lots of examples of journalists who've used scrape data to do stories on ProPublica's website. The AP, Investigative Reporters and Editors is another good resource. So what is web scraping? It's really extracting data from websites and putting the data into a structured format that you can work with. Obviously, you can't work with this underlying code. So you can just think of it as data extraction to put into a usable format. it's legal. You know, there are some limitations. Certainly the type of data that journalists use, which is publicly available data, is right now considered legal. There was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in 2019, but there are some limitations, so you should always check the terms of service. And if you're scraping publicly available websites, it's generally considered legal, which is most of what we're doing as reporters. But that's always a question that comes up. And the tech companies really do, well, lots of companies really do want to limit scraping. Just some basics about web pages. Maybe you're familiar with HTML code, web pages are written in HTML, and then the pages are rendered so that they look nice. This is a Wikipedia page for counties in Vermont. You can see the underlying code there on the right, which is then rendered into that nice looking visual. And this is a table that you'd see in a web browser when you look at the page. But underneath that is the code. And if you right click on the code, especially when you're scraping, because you want to know what it is that you're scraping, what type of data you're scraping, there's a lot of information to note. So we're going to be looking at, are we scraping a table? Are we scraping a list? And so to look at the underlying code, you can just right click on the web page, click inspect, and look around for what it is that you're going to be scraping. And you might want to keep an HTML dictionary close by in case you need some definitions. The first thing we're going to scrape is a table, and you can see it right there in the code between the tags. And we're also going to scrape a list. So let's get started. We're going to scrape with Google Sheets. You know, and I often get asked by my students, why scrape? Why not just download? You see the big download button on especially a government agency's website. And the advantage really is in that when the web page is updated, especially in Google Sheets, your data will be updated. So you'll see with what we're going to scrape today, when this data is updated, your data will be updated. So rather than having to go back in and re-download something the next day or the next week or the next month, you just can go back and check your spreadsheet and see how it's been added to. So you always have updated data. Okay, so we're going to write a script in Google Sheets to scrape data into a spreadsheet, which then you can do anything with, export it, do visualizations, do analysis. So if you have Google Sheets open, I then want you to search the web for the official US Olympics website. Step 3, I want you to click on Tokyo 2020. Step 4, I want you to go to medals. And just note that the structure of the data, this is tabular data, columns and rows. It's a table. Right-click on the URL and copy it. Go back to your Google Sheet and give it a name. Just right up in the top, whatever you want to call it. And now we're going to start to write our formula. So in cell A1, we're going to scrape an HTML. We're scraping HTML code from a web page. So with this formula, you always start with the equal sign. So you're going to type equals import. And once you start typing HTML, Google Sheets is going to recognize that's what you want to get. It's already recognizing that you want to get either a table or a list in an HTML page. So equals import HTML in cell A1. And there's some handy information on Google's website about all the different things you can scrape in the different formulas if you want to take a look at it. So after you have that set up, you're going to go ahead, and I have a little demo here. You're going to go ahead and open the parentheses, put double quote marks, right click and paste in your URL that you copied, double quote marks again, and a comma. So equals import HTML, open parentheses, quote marks, copy in your URL, more quote marks, and a comma. After that first comma, you're going to put another set of quote marks and the word table, another set of quote marks, and another comma. So you're building your scraping formula. You've told Google Sheets, I want you to import this HTML from this web address. I want you to get this table. And now you have to tell it what position on the web page your table is, where it is. So computers start counting from 0. And so it's the first table on our web page. So we're going to just put a 0, no quote marks, and close the parentheses. So what you're doing here, and these are called elements of the formula, you're just telling it what the position is of the table on the website, on the web page. You know, it could be the 14th table that you want to scrape, as long as you're putting the accurate number where it is, you should get the right scrape. And then close it out with parentheses, and your data should load. And mine might look a little bit different because I scraped this yesterday and I think the metal count has changed. But this is what your scrape should look like. And now obviously that's much easier to work with, and will get updated as the metal count changes. All right, let's try it again. We're going to do some more Olympics data, but we're going to do something a little bit different. In that our data that we're going to scrape doesn't really line up right, so we have to disconnect it from the website that we're using after we scrape. So let's see if you guys can remember the formula and do it yourselves. I mean, I'll walk you through it, but let's try it again. We're just going to get host cities. So open a new sheet. And now let's, you can name it Olympic host cities. You can get a new sheet by just clicking the plus button at the bottom of your Google Sheets. And now let's search the web for the official Wikipedia page with the whole list of Olympic host cities, all the way going back to 1896. and look for the table that you want to scrape. Again, it's going to be the first table to keep things simple. But remember, if it's the sixth table, whatever number it is on the page, that's the number that you're going to use. So let's see if you can write the scraping formula yourself, and I'll do it up here as well. Okay, in cell A1, we're going to put import HTML, open parentheses, quotes, paste in our URL, close quotes, comma, open quotes table, close quotes, comma, and then 0 because it is the first table, and then close our quotes and hit enter, and it should load. So hopefully everybody did it. Okay. You can see the data didn't line up correctly, and so we want to fix that. So if you can see, if you right-click on column A, you can see that the Wikipedia page address comes up in your address bar. So that is still linked to the Wikipedia page address, and we want to get rid of that. If you wanted to delete it, it's not going to work. It's going to delete everything. So we have to disconnect from the website. If you clicked on country, for example, the Wikipedia page is not going to come up. It's not connected. So all that I want you to do is just highlight your data and open a new sheet. And we're going to copy and paste this data into a new sheet. Just leave the old sheet where it is. Highlight your data, right-click, copy. And you just add a new sheet by pressing this plus button, give it a name. And when you go to paste your data, your copied data into cell A1, you're going to choose Paste Special. When you go to right-click and paste, you're going to do Paste Special because you're only going to paste the values. You're not going to paste any of the underlying formatting or the code. So click on that. You'll get the same thing. But now if you go and delete column A, it will just delete. It won't delete everything. And then you can type city over the list of cities, and everything should shift over to the left. And that's called disconnecting from the web page. You'll keep your original sheet, so your data will be updated, but you've just fixed the formatting. So this will be how it looks. Let's see if we can at least get in scraping a list, which is really easy to do, and just a tiny little tweak. So we're going to scrape some Craigslist data. So I'll show you what I mean. We scrape tables in columns and rows. You can also scrape data that's in a list. With Google Sheets, you can scrape a lot of different types of data, photos, text, lots of different stuff. So let's try to scrape a list. We're going to scrape available property for rent in Providence, Rhode Island, and we're just going to tweak our formula and just replace the word table with a list. So let's make sure that we get the right web page so that you guys can do it. open up a new Google Sheets, a fresh Google Sheets, and then just search the web for Craigslist Providence for rent so that you get the right web page. Just make sure that the view that you're looking at is the thumb view, because there's other views, and I can't remember what they are, that you could have here, but you want to be in the thumb view, this thumbnail view. And this is what it should look like. And if you right click on that web page, you'll see the word LI, or the letters LI. If you right click in it and inspect, you'll see LI between these two tags. If you remember, we saw table between the two tags, the two carets before. So LI is telling us that this is a list. And you could just do, Control F or Command F, LI to find that. So we know that we have a list. All right, so if you have that web page up, go ahead and right click and copy the URL and try to write the formula. The exact same formula, we're just replacing table with a list, the word list. And again, it's the only list on our web page, so we can still use 0. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to do that. This is what it should look like. Just quickly, especially for the journalists here, why should you learn to scrape? You can do better stories. You can save a lot of time, rather than sending public records requests, which in Massachusetts never get addressed quickly. You can stay updated on your beat. This is the Judicial Conduct Committee decisions in New Hampshire that I scraped. You could beat the competition, another New England site that I scraped. You can advance your career. There's a huge, huge market for data journalists with scraping skills. Lots and lots of jobs. And then I do have some slides here that have links to New England states sites that have information you can practice scraping. So go ahead and give it a try. I can't remember if these are lists or tables. And then join us in August. We're going to do some more advanced scraping. If you really, really want to learn to scrape, in a big way, you should learn to code, but you can scrape quite a bit of data without any coding skills. Okay, and I'm happy to help any of you guys, especially the journalists. So here's my email, and you're going to get these slides, which have the little demos in them after this. So feel free to email me and I'll address any of your questions, okay? And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Maggie. And again, for those that did have questions that we weren't able to get to, please take Maggie up on her offer, email her directly. She'll be happy to help. I would like you to all to remember as well that we at NEFAC are providing these classes at no cost to you. So if you find them valuable at all, if you find them helpful in your work, please support this program. Make a donation today at nefac.org, or better yet, become a sustaining member at nefac.org/join. Also, as we continue to move forward with this program, if you have any suggestions for future classes or would like to provide any kind of feedback at all, you're welcome to do so. Email me at justin@nefac.org. I want to thank you all again for attending Web Scraping 101. We'll see you next month at our next 30-minute skills class. Take care, everyone.